will go under review.
What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday evening, and thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. Whether you are in our live chat currently or listening to us on YouTube or audio platforms after the fact, I truly appreciate you spending your Tuesday night here on this show. Bills come off a very, I want to say frustrating to start, but ultimately comfortable win over the Tennessee Titans as they defeat them 34-10 in Orchard Park on Sunday. And while this game did reveal that there are still some qualms and issues with the team, it also gave us a lot of positives to take away as they head into Seattle to play a very tough, prolific Seahawks team with a very fun and dynamic passing offense. And I'm excited to preview that and talk about the good things from this game. But of course, I can never do it alone. And there's someone I wanted to get on this show who hasn't been here a few weeks, and I always appreciate their time. I always appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the ever so floating blue etherealness of them. The one and only Mr. Bruce Nolan, Mr. Exclusive Bruce. Thank you so much for being here. Again, appreciate your time. How you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, though. I would like to pose you a question.
A question.
How many times do I have to show up on the show before I'm no longer exclusive?
Well, here's the thing. Exclusive's a relative term, Mr. Exclusive. You're exclusive to
relative to what?
Relative to a lot of different things. Maybe to people who watch the show, it's exclusive to the show and not to their own time. So maybe to them, it's like, wow, he's so exclusive that he gets him on his show. And
Mr.
we don't
Rosa,
get to hang out
I
with Mr.
accept your
Exclusive.
definition of the word.
I appreciate that.
I accept
You came to me with the challenge. I came to you with a response.
Challenge accepted.
I was ready this week, but I am ready for this conversation. I appreciate you as always. And this was a very fun game, albeit started out a little bit messy for the Buffalo Bills. Seems to me that these first half slow start woes are something that have been a lingering problem that have a lot of different explanations, but ultimately in this game at the very least, kind of fell by the wayside as the team started to figure things out offensively and defensively. So we'll get into the deeper parts of this conversation, but let me start by just first asking you for your overall thoughts on this game and really those first half woes more specifically.
The more that you look at film, the less you blame coaches. That's just the way that this works. Just as a general rule, the more you watch film, the more you realize that there are plays to be made. And that's one of the hallmarks of a delineation between coaching and execution is when you watch the film, you go, well, there was no play to be made there. Like nobody was open. It was a bad concept. Everyone was covered up. Like there was no play to be made there. The blocking was terrible, whatever it is, right? You think to yourself, wow, they ran into a bad box. They didn't have enough numbers. Like you think to yourself, okay, that's a thing where it's on the play call, right? Or it's on the quarterback to not check it out. But plenty of times you watch back the film and you go, I mean, it was there. You just didn't do it. And when I watch back the first half from the Buffalo Bills and Tennessee Titans, that's what I talk about. Oh man, massive coaching adjustments in the second half on the offensive side. Really? Like, were there really? Because on the first third down, there was an open receiver and Amari Cooper just dropped it.
Yep.
Right? Like on the second side of the second third down, Josh Allen had an open Dalton Kincaid and missed him. Like just didn't throw it to him. Instead was completely locked in to a completely covered up Keon Coleman and thought, you know what I think? I think the higher chance of success is this 30-yard sideline throw to a covered receiver as opposed to the guy 10 feet in front of me or even just running for it. So you think to yourself, okay, well, the more times you do that, the more leeway you give to coaching. That's just kind of the way it works. And so for me, one of the things I wanted to evaluate when Josh Allen got to the podium after the game and said, well, first and second down efficiency, we just weren't super efficient on first and second down. I was like, I don't know, man. I kind of think he might be full of it. So I went back and watched it, and I was like, yeah, no, that wasn't it at all. Like, he was just saying that was absolute just nonsense. Because, press conferences are like 97% nonsense, right? That was one of the nonsenses, right? We weren't making good decisions on third down. Josh Allen wasn't. The receivers were not executing. Dalton Kincaid at one point ran a route that I'm fairly confident he should have sat down, right? And didn't. So you look at these execution issues and you go, okay, I mean, I'm pretty confident that's not a coaching issue. And then what happens is people who want to blame coaching anyway, they just roll it up to coaching.
Yeah.
So
or Josh.
Yeah, or Josh, right? They'll do anything to roll it up to coaching because they already have a predisposition. So they go, well, the fact that Dalton Kincaid didn't sit down on the route, that means that he wasn't told to. Have any of you ever coached anybody before in my life? Do they always do 100% of the things you coach them to do? Like, is that how this works? So when you look and you see these pivotal execution issues that just happen at ill-timed times, I think one of the most important things you could do in the second half was you just threw a lot of screen passes to Khalil Shakir, which kind of takes the thinking out of it, and you just gave it to Pinball, and Pinball will make the way clear for you. So when I look at the offensive struggles in the first half, I don't come away with some sort of, massive sweeping, well, guys, I have uncovered the truth of it all. I've dug into the cave of wonders, and I have come out with the genie lamp. And when I rub it, it will give us the successful answer to all of our offense. No, they just screwed up sometimes. And that kind of sucks because they screwed up at, inopportune times. Now, is there ever an opportune time to screw up? Actually, yes. Yeah. Second down and 2 when you're up by 30 is an opportune time to screw up. So yes, there is an opportune time to screw up. And they just didn't pick those times. And so I think that we want to make it about some sort of massive eureka moment. And sometimes it's just not. Sometimes you just screw stuff up. And that was my big takeaway.
It's hard, I think, for a lot of fans when they watch this team to kind of look at the execution woes and think that that's the first stop when it comes to properly evaluating the problem. And I'm not trying to pin anything on the fan base as much as it's like we seem to have this common theme every week where when there is a narrative or maybe the hot button topic of blame in the team, we try to point everything to it in one way or the other. And for this season, in my opinion, most hot button controversial topic kind of carrying over from last season is Sean McDermott. And I've had my opinions on McDermott. You've had yours. We in Cover One have all had discussions about him as the coach. Is he the right guy? All these different things. But it's always going to fall back to him. And when you see the first half woes, one of the most common narratives is Sean McDermott did not have his guys ready to play. To me, this is a lazy narrative. And it's not to say that coaches can have this, I guess, if you want to call it, issue where maybe they're not fully, prepared and things go wrong very quickly for a team. That does exist. But I do think that that's a very specific problem that can very much get lumped into, well, first half execution wasn't good. He didn't have them ready to play. But like you said, the Amari Cooper drop was on Amari Cooper, a new receiver who might not have been ready for the velocity of a Josh Allen football and just mistimed his hands and dropped the ball. And then a part of it is also on Josh Allen, which is why I brought that comment up from Roy. When Josh isn't sharp, people don't want to admit that Josh wasn't sharp a lot of the time. But Josh was not sharp in that first half. And a part of it also might have had to do with, certain second downs, I feel like they struggled in gaining significant yardage to make the third downs easier. There was also a problem with penalties, and penalties can be attributed to the coaching staff, but also some of the calls were a little I do think that it's not really a gigantic underlying, consistent issue of the coaches and doing this wrong or whatever. I'm glad that you brought up execution because it really just was an execution problem. And the format was there for them to be successful in the second half. I also think Tennessee having long times of possession in the first half on offense definitely gave the Bills less time with the ball. And obviously when you're having execution woes paired with the Titans dominating it, then that's going to make it look a lot worse. But to me, even when they were down 10-0, even when it was ugly, it never felt out of reach. I felt like it was more of a ticking time bomb for Tennessee to screw up or their defense to start caving. And that's exactly what happened. So yes, it was a slow first start. I think blaming it fully on the coaching staff is not fair. However, I'll bounce this back to you, Bruce. I do think Joe Brady, I want to give a little bit of blame for the first half woes to him. Just a little bit, not everything, because it's not all on him. But I did feel that the first half game script for this offense was a little too static for my liking. And it's not to say they didn't run any motion at all, but really sticking purely with the shotgun running and the looks at a shotgun and just kind of not really getting to anything a bit more dynamic. And I just want to bounce this back to you to ask, do you feel like this was by design, or do you feel that there might be an issue as far as Joe Brady's game feel this season and maybe knowing when the time to pull those different types of looks and different types of plays out of his bag? Do you feel like there's an issue with this, or do you think maybe I'm being overblown here and maybe I'm putting a little too much criticism on him?
Okay, so let's walk through this in our head. So let's say you get back to the sidelines after the first drive. Okay. It was gain of 5, gain of 4, 3rd and 1, short pass dropped. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you go back to the sideline, you're looking on your Microsoft Surface tablet and you're not throwing them and breaking them, but you're watching these things. Are you going to come away from that drive thinking, wow, yeah, we should definitely change up everything we're doing? No, you're going to think, well, if he just would have caught the ball, it would have been fine. Okay. So now you get back to get to it after the second drive. Okay. And you think to yourself, okay, well, I mean, if Josh Allen just hits the wide open receiver right there in front of him, then we're fine. Are you going to come back to the sideline and think to yourself, man, gosh, I should really change up what I'm doing? No, you're going to think you just hit the pass. So it's like, when do you pull the trigger there? Like, when do you decide, okay, the sample size of execution errors is enough that we're going to just flip everything? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the reasonable sample size is what? 4, 5? That's the first half. Yeah. So it's like, it's weird because you think to yourself, okay, so you're Joe Brady. Like, when do you, because then you get mad when you're a fan and you say, he got away from the running game too early or something like that. Right. Like, the truth of the matter is it's all results-based thinking. If it worked, it was great. And if it doesn't work, then it was garbage. It's one of those weird, but you just kind of walk through it. Like, when do you do that and say, okay, like, now it's time to change up everything I'm doing because the execution of the stuff that I'm doing isn't there? But I mean, it was there to be made, but they just didn't do it.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a tough call. It's a really tough call because if you're the offensive coordinator, you're looking at these plays going, there were plays to be made. Josh Allen comes over and you go, look, he was open. And he goes, yeah, I'll do it better. Okay, cool. Like, what's your impetus to like flip everything on its head at that point? Mm-hmm. It's a strange dynamic. We don't really think about that, but that's the dynamic we need to think through is if you're Joe Brady, like, how many times do they screw up something before you're like, okay, let's try something completely new? Because it could just be a one-off. Right. It's a game of small sample sizes, especially when you're going 3 and out. It's not like you had a metric ton. You ran 20 plays in the first half. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like you ran a metric ton of plays. So it's weird.
Yeah. I think why I pose that question is I do agree. And like, I don't want it to come off the idea that I'm like in agreement with you on execution problems. And I'm not pinning the full first half on Joe Brady at all. If anything, I actually think all in all, he called a pretty good game. I think there are just moments for me when I watch him and certain times where I feel like he goes back to the same play a little too often, or maybe even twice in a row in certain parts of the game, or maybe not the same play, but something that's extremely similar to the play ran previous where it's not really fooling anybody. And certain things that they've done this season that I feel are getting snuffed out too quickly and don't really do anything to kind of change up how they present it to a defense to maybe make it more effective. And I'm talking more specifically, and granted, this could be a player execution problem because he's not 100% healthy, but it feels like that design screen where they have Samuel come into the backfield and then move out over to the flat and he hits him for a screen and it gets snuffed out. That feels like a recurring issue. And there are just certain things that I see and I'm kind of like, for the sake of maybe the fact that you're going up against a really good defense and you want to start off hot, these are just things I'd like to tweak. But again, I'm majoring in the minors with it as much as I feel like Brady over the course of a season, I'm hoping maybe if these execution issues get cleaned up that I really don't have the qualms with it. There's just certain times where I'm kind of like scratching my head, like, did we need to go back to this or did we need to do it? And I know it's results-based thinking a lot of the time, but even when I see it pre-snap, I'm like, we've run on first down a lot in this series. Like, is there an opportunity to switch it up here? Or maybe the second down play calling has been a lot of interior running. I don't think they're being as effective with it. I would like them to do something different, but they go back to it, just hoping that the matchup works, and it doesn't. And I know that adjustments don't happen right away, but I do think there are still things you can present in a drive or the options you can have to be able to make things more effective. But again, this is a very minor issue, not something, again, for the first half woes I'm pinning entirely on Joe Brady. I just feel like it could be cleaned up a smidge, and nothing wrong with cleaning up a little bit. But it's my final thought on that, Bruce. I want to move on to Amari Cooper. I want to talk about the shiny toy that the Bills just traded for, who played 33% of his snaps, yet made a huge impact, having 66 yards and the touchdown, which is what many were calling a improvised play. I don't 100% know how true that is, but Bruce, talk to me about your thoughts on Amari Cooper, his first game, and the future for him, at least this season in Buffalo.
The dude ran 12 routes, and already we're like, yeah, that's a guy. That's a dude. And I think that one of the things that was interesting about this conversation is that Amari Cooper was immediately getting the types of throws that you historically saw Stephon Diggs getting, right? He's one-on-one on the outside. Yeah, I'll throw this up there. He'll make a play. Mm-hmm. He got the good release off the line of scrimmage. I'm just going to kind of throw it out there, the sideline, give him some room to work underneath it. Oh, what's that? It's a short, 5-yard stop route on third down. Yeah. You know what? He'll shake this. If I just wait a beat, he'll shake it. I'll put it on him. It'll be great. So for me, it's Amari Cooper being schemed up part-time the way that Stephon Diggs was schemed up full-time. And Amari Cooper is a much larger person than Stephon Diggs, so that helps. But I think that one of the things that's interesting about this conversation is that we say he's made a huge impact, right? Dude ran 12 routes, but he also caught 4 passes. So, I mean, I'll take that. Do you have 5 or 6 targets, Joe? I can't remember off the top of I'm having a brain fart. Can you pull that up for me?
The page up. I'm going to pull it up right now.
Pull it up for me while I filibuster, because we're a team like this. But all right. I want you to just kind of wrap your head around the impact of a part-time player as I'm doing this. So that means he caught a pass on 1 out of every 3 routes that he ran, which is just bonkers level crap. Now, you would not expect this to stick up. What was the answer, Joe?
It was 5 targets, 4 receptions.
Okay. So he caught a pass on 1/3 of the routes that ran, right? The targets per route run number on that is 38.5%, right? Which is just staggering stuff. The fact that you're able to do that with part-time, I want you to just wrap your head around this. If Amari Cooper was always a part-time player, like he never ran more than 12 routes, that would be good. His contribution would be good in raw number. Now, from efficiency standpoint, it wouldn't be great because he's only on the field for 12 out of 60 something plays. But the point is that he only ran a route on 12 of the 60 plays. But yeah, that was good enough. Like they just plugged him in like he was the number 1 wide receiver, just part-time instead of full-time. I love to see it. And I was all over the Amari Cooper thing. Listen, I'm not one of those people who's just like every single thing that the team does is amazing. Like that's just not my thing, because I'm of the opinion that if you have an opinion about a hypothetical move before it happens, and then it happens, and then you change it because your team did it, you're a hypocrite. So nobody wants to listen to a hypocrite. Well, I mean, maybe they do if it validates their priors, but I don't want to listen to a hypocrite. And I don't think I've developed the branding that the type of people who listen to my show would want to listen to me if I was a hypocrite. So for me, I was pounding the table all offseason that I had concerns about separation versus man coverage. I was like, who's going to separate versus man? Who's going to separate versus man? And they draft Keon Coleman. I'm like, yeah, I like Keon Coleman as a good hands guy, yards after catch, concerns about separation versus man. And then they go and double down by getting Amari Cooper at the exact thing that you needed to get. And then he comes up and shows up his first game and does exactly the same thing that we needed to do. Mm-hmm. So for me, I mean, I can't imagine a ton better first game from an impact from an efficiency standpoint than what we saw from Amari Cooper qualitatively and efficiency quantitatively.
Firmly agree. I was very skeptical of both the snap share he was going to have in his first game and the effectiveness he'd have in his first game. And the biggest thing for me, not biggest, but one of the things I pointed out to my guest last week, Easton Freeze, who covers the Titans, was the Titans defense might benefit from the fact that there's not really a rapport with Josh Allen and Amari Cooper. And I also went into detail about how I believe Josh is a trust-based quarterback, how it takes a while to really earn trust with him. Obviously, a guy like Keon Coleman this year, who's put in a position where he's one of your primary targets right away, just for the sake of how the room is constructed, is going to command targets. But really, Josh likes having a guy he could feel comfortable with. Any quarterback does, but especially Josh Allen. You saw it with Cole Beasley. You saw it with Steph Diggs. 2019, John Brown's his deep safety blanket. You see it now with Khalil Shakir, who I think is the primary security blanket for Josh Allen. So when Cooper gets traded for, which I love the move, on Twitter, I posted about it, ever since Greg Thompson revealed what the money would look like, I was all in because I knew it was a feasible move that made a lot of sense for the team. I was excited, but I was kind of thinking, how much is he really going to be there? And also, how quickly are people going to blame Sean McDermott for Amari Cooper not getting a large percent of the targets or a large percent of the snaps? And the not getting a large percent of the snaps part still rings true. Again, 33%. But the fact that he, in such limited volume, was still so effective is truly encouraging, both for the sake of not even just aspirations for your outlook of this season, but your aspirations for Josh Allen. Because I think Josh Allen wasn't perfect in either of the two losses they had a couple weeks prior, but Josh Allen wasn't the only one I could blame. I think there were many factors that led to that offensive lapse. You pointed out lack of separation. That was a problem. But I also think that when Josh just simply doesn't feel comfortable in his targets, he tends to press more and he tends to get off platform more and he tends to be off his rocker a little bit, mechanically gets a little more sloppy and things just go a little haywire in his brain to a point where you're kind of scratching your head. I think Amari Cooper levels Josh Allen out. And I think that would be something that last week I would have said might take a few weeks, but now feel that this is going to happen pretty quickly and, be something of a fairly instantaneous process. I think Josh being able to target Cooper, even in the limited amount of, snaps he had, limited amounts of route ran, to still see the effectiveness and also see certain plays that were kind of miscues, but still work. And the one I'll point out is Josh basically missing the throw to Cooper and Cooper making the on-the-fly adjustment to catch the pass that went behind him. That's going to make Josh Allen feel comfortable. That's going to help Josh Allen. And I think that is in turn going to trickle into the rest of the offense, because when you have Josh's guy who he feels comfortable with, who he knows he can hit on more difficult throws down the field or even just quick hitters that can ignite an offense, this is just going to get him in rhythm and get him going a little more quickly. And I think it's just a massive part of what can make this Bills team successful. I definitely think when you just talked about Keon Coleman earlier and kind of the construction of the room, like I had questions about it, but I kind of was like, well, they got some pieces. I think they can make the verticality of the offense still be a thing, maybe with some play design, and maybe these guys could be effective. It's clear it just wasn't working as effectively as they would like to, as consistently. And this move made a ton of sense in a vacuum. I am super excited to have Amari Cooper in Buffalo. I am super excited to see what him and Josh can do together. And I am super excited to see what Cooper's presence will bring to the rest of the offense that now I think is going to feed off that energy a little bit and become more multiple and more dynamic. And I just want to point out that in this game, again, with Amari Cooper's presence and only 33% of the snaps, you have a Keon Coleman who's targeted 7 times, has 4 receptions, 125 yards, could have had a touchdown. It was very close, but unfortunately not full control. Khalil Shakir in the second half, you pointed out the screens, 7 receptions, 65 yards, caught all 7 of his targets because of course he does. He has glue on his gloves, not literally, I hope. Dalton Kincaid, 3 receptions, 52 yards on 6 targets. Like, this is the multiplicity of this pass catching group that I wanted. I still think that you can maintain an everybody eats mentality with a guy like Amari Cooper here, but having the presence really sets the tone for what this offense could be through the air, in addition to a rushing attack that I think has been very good. And therefore, I am optimistic about the rest of the year and optimistic about the rapport. So I want to get into more offensive factors, but Bruce, any final thoughts on Mr. Cooper before we head over?
No, because you may find this hard to believe, but we're already behind time.
Right.
And part of that is because my last answer was like super duper rambly. So that's partly my bad. So I should probably just keep us moving along.
You're good, man. And I appreciate you being here. I love your answers. And let's move on to the biggest factors on offense besides Amari Cooper that lead to the second half comeback. Obviously, they start turning it on really right around the beginning of the third quarter. And there were a few pieces that I could point out that I think had massive contributions. I obviously said one of them earlier, probably a couple. But Bruce, curious to hear who you think the biggest factors on offense were in that second half that led to the big win.
I think it was Khalil Shakir. I think that there was a one drive in the second half where it was just the Shakir show. I mean, Joe Brady is known. We've seen this, and I just keep an eye on this. He has been known to just spam the exact same button over and over and over again on one drive. He'll do it. He'll just be like, aha, you like that? How do you like the exact same play, the opposite direction? Like, that's, what's behind door number 2. The exact same thing as was behind door number 1, only this time flipped. And he did it with Khalil Shakir, specifically with bubble screens 2 times on the same drive. And I think that the offense looks so much different when Khalil Shakir is there, because I think he's one of those rare receivers that the Buffalo Bills had on the roster at the beginning of the year that can just go get you a bucket. I mean, I like Keon Coleman as a possession, hands, yak guy. And I don't think he's in that realm right now where he can just kind of go get you a bucket, just go win a route. And when I say get you a bucket, I don't mean like go moss this guy, because he can occasionally do that. That's great, but that's never going to be as efficient as just going and winning a route. And so just go win a route. And Khalil Shakir can do that. He can go win a route. And now you have Amari Cooper, who can also go win a route. And having 2 of those people is really important. But for a while, the Bills didn't have one of those people because Shakir was hurt and Cooper wasn't a Bill yet. So you don't have anybody who can just go win your route. So in the first half, you got a chance to throw to Amari Cooper a little bit, and that's cool. Get a little handle on it. And the second half, one of the things you're like, well, we got Khalil Shakir back. Let's just send him on a pinball. Call it a day. And I think that was one of the biggest things that sparked the passing offense, is that Khalil Shakir, with a bum ankle, is still somebody who can just get a W more than most of the Buffalo Bills offensive skill players. I think the other thing that allows you to do is it allows you to use Dalton Kincaid down the field, which is the second part of the things that was the biggest factor on offense that led to a second half comeback, is that Joe Brady is starting to throw the ball to Dalton Kincaid down the field. And Dalton Kincaid on corner routes is a really good route for Dalton Kincaid, because usually you don't want to put a tight end that close to the sideline because you're worried about ball skills, right? Getting his feet in bounds, things like that. And you also don't want him to get hung up in the slot on a linebacker, right? Because usually what's going to end up happening is you're going to be in the slot, but you're going to be actually on the line, so that your flanker can then be off the line, and you're coming off into a linebacker. That's the way it works, right? You're coming off the line and you're in a linebacker's face right away. And, you get hung up because you're a big dude. You're 6'5", 240 pounds. You're a big dude. You get hung up on that. And so much of the corner route revolves around you being able to clear coverage and clear contact. And Dalton Kincaid, smooth clearing contact. And so, I mean, he got some crazy vertical leverage on that corner route. And you saw him happen twice where Dalton Kincaid just go get your corner route. And that's a huge win. If you have a tight end who can win at 3 levels instead of just, remember early on in 2023, it was just like flare out and catch this, negative ADOT pass, make something happen. Like all his passes were 1 yard down the field. And we were like, what are you doing with this, Ken Dorsey? We're starting to see Dalton Kincaid. I think his ADOT was 12 against the Titans. Passes to Dalton Kincaid. And so 12.3 maybe? I'm going off the top of my head. But
I got to find his ADOT. I know his average reception distance was 17.3.
Which is nice.
Which is still nuts. That's still insane.
So for a tight end, the ability to do that is impressive. And I think that inverse, being able to use Khalil Shakir on the short stuff and Dalton Kincaid on the longer stuff, rather than Shakir on the longer stuff and Kincaid on the shorter stuff, I actually think that's a good thing. And it helps really, really pull spacing and help you with the run game. It also takes your bigger players out of the box to cover Kincaid, which means that Khalil Shakir can do more yak things. So I think that helps too. So I think that those are the 2 things that were the biggest factors on offense that led to the second half comeback.
I found it. I believe his average yards per target was 12.2. So
Oh, I
I
was
mean,
so close. I had
yeah,
12.3. Okay.
and
I'm
plus
sorry. I have
4.7
failed you.
receiving EPA. No, you're good. You can never fail me, Bruce. Come on now. That's it. I'm happy to have you here because you can't fail me. People who would fail me, they don't come on this show. No, but anyways, talking about biggest factors. So I firmly agree. First and foremost, Khalil Shakir. I was a huge fan of the game. I just love that. I love when he gets involved with the screen game, and honestly, to me, that's something that can kindle that aspect of this offense. If you're asking to get it to work more consistently, so literally just put the ball in his freaking hands. Like it's that simple. He's just so good getting yak, and he's so hard to bring down, and has such insane balance and smoothness when he runs that it's so much fun to watch him, and it's so comforting knowing that you have this player in short space that can help you out. And really, I still want Curtis Samuel to be a part of this offense. I still want Curtis Samuel to have success in Buffalo. You paid him the money to do it, and obviously you don't want that contract to look bad. But also, I believe in what Curtis Samuel brings to the table. But Khalil Shakir is just so naturally gifted with the ball in his hands that to me, that should be the priority option when you're talking about screen passes. And I think this game might inspire them to do it with him a bit more. Again, not that they haven't done it in the past, but more consistently. But I put on this list, and this is one that I felt was a little underrated. And I don't think he had the, consistently on a play per play basis was, game changing, but a couple really nice plays. But something that I feel like when he's in, changes the dynamic of the offense a little bit and maybe how defenses are going to look at this Bills rushing attack. And it's Ray Davis. Ray Davis to me is just so freaking fun to watch for the explosive factor, for how he mauls people in the running game, for his difficulty to bring down, his balance, his open field vision, all these things about Ray Davis that are obviously still developing because he's a rookie, still feel so effective. And what I love about Ray Davis is how well he can run, especially when you talk about under center. And maybe if you're talking about a Buffalo Bills offense that I think could stand to run a bit more under center play action, this is a guy that I think will even, and I cite the pro ant mantra, you don't need to have the best running game to have the best play action attack. But man, with a guy like Ray Davis, who is so effective and runs so well, especially when you talk about under center, and what that could do for an offense that might try to ball fake a bit more and get more explosive plays out of it. To me, when he came in and punched Tennessee in the mouth with that huge run and just the presence he's had in this game as well as the Jets game, opens things up. It makes the defense have to respect the player, but also respect the fact that when he's in, now you got to worry about him, but also worry about if they know you're worried about him. And I think that those mind games to me are what make Ray Davis an impactful player. I think his presence on the field against Tennessee was a lot of fun to watch. I think the play faking you could run off of it is going to be very successful when he's on the field, as long as you opportune times to call it and not just spamming it over and over again, which I don't think they would do, just given their tendencies. So Davis is one I had. And then I'm just going to throw it back to Keon Coleman. I was very impressed with the rookie. I think he played a great game. Unfortunately didn't get the touchdown, but it's not just how he was used. But again, what he does with the ball in his hands, it's something that I thought would be a strength of him in this offense. He's just an explosive guy. I mean, the fact that he got wrapped up for a tackle and used the weight of the defender to kind of spin around and keep himself on his feet before, of course, he trips, but nearly breaking free for a full field touchdown. I forgot where they were. It was fun. And I think that, talking about Amari Cooper earlier and his impact, that's going to make Keon Coleman an even bigger factor and someone that I think you just might not get matched up with the best corner on the team, might be put in more favorable situations, maybe gives him more flexibility to move him around. And all of a sudden, if Coleman's not your isolated receiver on one side and he's getting into formations, maybe trip side, or maybe if he's in a stack of some kind, that's going to give him more favorable matchups, maybe in zone, maybe in man. And for that reason, I'm really excited about him. And I thought he had a great game and I just wanted to shout him out. So those are my players.
I love Ray Davis, man. I'm all the way with you on Ray Davis. And I made a post earlier this year, goodness gracious, on Buffalo Rumblings. I wrote an article. I say I made a post like it was social media or something. I wrote an article on Buffalo Rumblings and I said, are we 100% sure that James Cook is going to get more volume this year? I think we just kind of assumed he was going to get more volume. I said, I don't know, man. Like Ray Davis just has to, not be worse than Latavius Murray. Like that's the line. And so I think that it's rare to get power and explosion from the same running back. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. I think one of the things that makes, caveat here. I really am not comparing Derrick Henry to Ray Davis. Okay, please, I'm not doing it. One of the things that makes Derrick Henry special is that one of those rare running backs that has power and also explosion. He can hit you for a 60-yard touchdown, and also he can break tackles, right? Yeah. Those are the things that are weird because you think of power back, you think someone like Roschon Johnson, right? Who doesn't have that explosive ability. Yeah, he'll break some tackles and that's amazing. But it's the combination of when you're evaluating running backs, your ability to avoid or break contact and your explosive run rate. Those two things together, if you do like a scatter chart of those two things, I'll tell you some people who are people I need to watch from an NFL draft standpoint when evaluating running backs coming out. And Ray Davis is one of those rare running backs who can break tackles, but he can also break big runs. We saw that in the preseason. Yep. We knew about this. He can break big. It's not like it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And for some people, they equate power with lack of explosion. And then they immediately assign that to Sean McDermott. Go, this is the kind of thing he wants. He wants 2 yards in a ground of dust. And we're going to, I don't know why I'm talking like this all of a sudden, but we're going to get 4 yards every single play. And we're going to win every game.
Are Bills fans sheriffs in a Wild West town that have tumbleweeds rolling?
Yes, I'm curling a mustache right now. That's exactly what it is. Right? A gigantic, legendary handlebar mustache. But that's the thing that I love about Ray Davis is that he's one of those running backs that gives you both. He can give you the ability to break tackles, but also give you those explosive big runs. And I think I was a big fan coming out. He was I had 2 main day 3 targets. One was Tyrone Tracy, one was Ray Davis. So I'm feeling extremely validated in my pick of wide running backs coming out of day 3 of the draft. So yeah, I'm all the way in. Love Ray Davis. Completely fine with a timeshare there.
Yeah, I agree. And, I'll point back to his physicality because I think that's just one thing when you talk about the not new construction, that's the wrong term, but like the current construction of the Bills offense and how they run. They run so physical. They block so physically and, O-linemen block physically in general, but the way they do it is like they want to dominate. They want to punish you. And there's no doubts about it either. Like you see some of their tackles out in space and you're like, oh yeah, this team can freaking run the rock and they'll punch you in the face for it. Spencer Brown ate 2 people on the field on one downhill. I forgot who was running the ball. I can't remember if it was Cook or no, it was a screen. I think it was one of the Shakir screens. Spencer Brown might have actually killed 2 people on the field. It was insane. And now pair that with a running back. And this is not dismissing James Cook. I think James Cook can be physical. I think he can stay on his feet. I think he can take a hit and even push a pile. But Ray Davis, to me, has more of it. Ray Davis, to me, is better known for that in this offense. And that's why I think when you add in that factor, it's just going to make defenses a little more threatened up front. And again, what you can get away with when you know you have a defense respecting the powerful runner, I think is going to open more things up for this offense. There's a lot of opportunity, and the increased snap share for Ray Davis, I think, is very encouraging. I'm really excited about the trends on offense we're seeing. But let's move on to defense, Bruce. And, first half, not pretty. A lot of long, sustained drives, hold them to a field goal, then eventually give up a touchdown. Not pretty. But then second half, and it's another one of the same stories where they just completely lock down an offense and change the entire dynamic of the game. Your thoughts on really this defense in general in this game and maybe why you saw that first to second half change?
I think one of the things that's really important is that the Tennessee Titans got out of script. I think that when you get out of script and you have to start calling plays from your main bag and you can't call all of the same setup plays that you used to, I think it's when you start to really see the talent of the teams and the ability to call what I would consider organic play calling. You start to see those things come out. And the Titans, listen, you can smoke and mirrors your way through 8, 10, 12 plays. You can't do it through an entire game. You can't even do it through an entire half. And I think it's one of the main things that we saw. I think the other thing that you saw is you saw the defensive line that I think was getting close in the first half, get home in the second half. I made a tweet at the end of the first quarter. I said, hey, Gregory Rousseau's looking really good rushing the passer. And people were like mad at me. Like they were laughing at me. And I think like, oh yeah, his 0 sacks and an offsides penalty. I'm like, are you watching?
I forgot about that penalty.
Or what? Like, Gregory Rousseau has some really, really good reps. He ended the game with like 12 pressures and 6 quarterback hits or something. It was insane. Like, he deserved way more than a sack, right? But he impacted the game meaningfully. And that was a big question coming in this year. Was Gregory Rousseau going to take a next step? In week 1, of course, he blew up and it was like, oh yeah, he's awesome. And then kind of went quiet a little bit. And now against the Titans, he had a fantastic game. And I think that it's a lot easier for Mason Rudolph to get the ball out and not have those pressures affect him when you're inside script. When you're outside script, I think that's more difficult. And I think what you saw, some of the stuff just start to catch up.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point. And also, just to extend that, talking about the game script in the second half too. This defense complements this offense well, as it should. But when the Bills start pulling away and start pressuring you into finally having to go downfield, that's when I think the game was lost for Tennessee. Mason Rudolph made, I want to say, some pretty nice first half throws, and comfort and script probably helped with that. But the timing, the precision on certain routes, I was like, wow, damn, quick to get that ball out and get it into the perfect spot. That was really good. As I get a Steam notification from my friend who doesn't know I have a show going on right now, so probably be doing that later. I don't know if you heard the beep. By the way,
I did not hear the beep. Okay. More importantly, what game does he want to play?
It's one of Lethal Company or Helldivers. That's been the ones we've had in rotation. I don't know if you played Helldivers, Bruce, but it's fun.
I am familiar. I will say this, because I don't have friends I play games with, those games get lost on me a little easier. I'm much more of a solo kind of game person, aside from like Mario Kart, Mario Party on the couch with my wife. So I just finished Legends of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and now we got Mario Party Jamboree. So we're going to play Mario Party probably when I'm done here. And
very nice.
Mario Kart and Smash Brothers and, couch co-op Nintendo games. I think if I had friends who I played PlayStation games with online, or just friends, you could just stop the sentence after friends, then I think that I would probably behave a little differently when it comes to my gaming behavior.
I should let you all know, Smash is my game. I haven't played it in forever. I just don't get the time to. But when I was in my prime, I was a nasty Smash player. Not Melee though. I'm not a competitive Melee player. I'm not on that tier. But like, you catch me in Smash Brothers Ultimate or Wii U, my Captain Falcon was disgusting. But moving on, yeah, I think talking about this defense in the second half, you made a lot of the points I kind of wrote down. But game script to me was the biggest thing. And when you have this offense finally start clicking and putting pressure on their offense to kind of keep up, there are offenses in this league that can do that, right? Like, I think Houston was an example of an offense that can move the ball down the field. Granted, the second half, that defense held them in check and did quite well after they made some adjustments. And then I think Seattle we'll get to this conversation. Seattle is a offense that I think could do that quite well and probably keep pace. But when you're facing a team like Tennessee with Mason Rudolph, and even though they have a decent cast of characters in there with DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, at some point, this quarterback who's playing on script, as you pointed out, is going to just simply not be able to keep up with the offense's pace. When you have to go downfield and they know you have to go downfield, Sean McDermott's probably salivating at the thought of you trying to air a pass out over 10 yards. And once he clamps you down and gets you into that position, you just cannot quite keep up with it. And I think with this offense or this defense, and kind of to the point I made before about how I never felt like this game was out of reach, it did feel like they were just a quick off. And Eric made a great point about this earlier in one of our chats, but like a quick off, like the pass rush was just about to hit home, but it was a quick throw on script. Or maybe like someone was just a little bit out of position and could have made a play on the ball if they were just like a second earlier into their spot. And that changes over the course of the game when you get more comfortable and get more in rhythm. And I think that's been a big part of the Bills being able to be successful in the second half. And I'll even talk about really the whole year, and I'll include Baltimore, because even though the score was ugly, that defense was bearing down on Baltimore's offense in the second half too. Offense got away from them very quickly with the bad turnover. And then of course that puts them in a terrible spot. Each game this season, this defense has been able to do this. In fact, I think it was either David or it was someone from Cover One. I apologize. I can't remember who brought this up. It might have been Adam, who pointed out that the Bills in the fourth quarter have the first overall EPA defense right now. So it just changes over the course of a game. And that's been a recurring theme. So they give up yards. They get punched in the mouth at times, but ultimately they bear down when it matters. And that has been going on every game this season outside of a Baltimore game that, again, offensive lapses kind of made it get away from them. And I think that I got to tip my cap to the defense right now, really the coaching staff on it, because that's a hard feat, but also it makes me super encouraged when you talk about this team's defensive DNA going into potentially another playoff run and how they can kind of maintain their integrity and try to kind of bear down when offenses start posing problems. And maybe once they start getting off script, how you could start dictating the game in the hopes that your offense is following suit, which, in the 2 losses wasn't so much the case. So I was impressed. I was pleased. It's a huge, huge task against Seattle, especially if Metcalf can play. But Bruce, any final thoughts on the defense before we get a little more into the Seattle matchup and sign off for the evening?
Nope.
Tremendous. Moving on to Seattle. This is a team that is one of the most prolific passing offenses in the league. One of, in my opinion, the best running backs in the league in Kenneth Walker, who is just an absolute stud. A defense that is seemingly still finding its legs, played a much better game against Atlanta, had a few turnovers, kept Kirko in distress, and kind of had their way and kept them off the field, making Kirk make some bad mistakes. But they're a tough team, but a team that I feel like when you talk about the Bills right now and the momentum they're on, while they pose threats, I think the Bills can give them a pretty tough game, both offensively and defensively. Just talk to me about your thoughts on this matchup and the things you're really looking out for, Bruce.
Kenneth Walker is terrifying.
Yes.
That's my big takeaway. I think they're probably not likely to have DK Metcalf, which I think really helps as far as being able to compress now Geno's playing really good football, but I think being able to compress the defense on Tyler Lockett and Amari and Jackson Smith-Njigba, who are both really good players, but are not the same level of terrifying, explosive play down the field people that DK Metcalf is. Kenneth Walker is, I don't know how much time, because he plays on the West Coast and he plays frequently at 4:00. I don't know how much time Bills Mafia has spent watching Kenneth Walker. I didn't compare Derrick Henry to Ray Davis. I specifically said that. I'm going to go ahead and do this again. I am not comparing Barry Sanders to Kenneth Walker. However, there is no play in which you are safe from Kenneth Walker breaking a 40-yard touchdown.
Yep.
None. Not a single one. Because you can think you have him bottled up and he'll just go crazy YOLO. Look, one of the big knocks on Kenneth Walker is he goes full YOLO, like all the time. Like you'll be watching the film and you'll go, the hole was right there. What are you doing? He'll do a pirouette and he'll, do some twinkle toes nonsense. And all of a sudden he's out the backside and you're like, what? There was a 3.5-yard gain right there for you. He goes, I don't want a 3.5-yard game. He's like Doc Brown. Like you walk in, he's got this gigantic thing on his head. He goes, Marty, 1.21 gigawatts. Like it's absolutely, he's insane. He's a mad scientist at the running back position, full YOLO, legitimately entertaining. Like just pull up, if you have NFL Pro, just pull up NFL Pro, type in Kenneth Walker's name and just, crack open a bottle of wine, pull open some popcorn, drizzle a little butter on it, because you were fancy like this. And he's terrifying. And the Buffalo Bills have a defense schematically that wants you to run the ball. Like they don't put heavy boxes or even standard boxes against you. Mm-hmm. The Buffalo Bills, a couple years ago, do you remember the game, Joe, a couple years ago, where the Kansas City Chiefs with Clyde Edwards-Helaire ran the ball like a gajillion times, and
200 yards.
Yeah, and the entire discussion coming out of that game was, what are the Bills doing? My podcast that week was specifically about, you need to know that every defense makes a choice. Mm-hmm. Because you can't possibly cover everything and be excellent against everything at all the time. You can't. You have to give up something. And so what the Buffalo Bills did was they said, we'll gladly take 4 or 5 yards from Clyde Edwards-Helaire because we don't think you can go that many plays without a holding penalty or without a false start that's going to throw you off your game and put the entire game plan under the microscope. The Buffalo Bills are like that all the time now. Like they're primarily a nickel defense and they do not load boxes.
Nope. One of the lowest rates in the league.
Right. And so that's just the way that Buffalo chooses to play defense. It's very important. It's a choice. And so that means if one person is a half gap out of location, you end up with a Derrick Henry 80-yard touchdown. Kenneth Walker can do that kind of thing. That's what I'm worried about. And I would love to have the Buffalo Bills get up quickly, but the slow starts have indicated that maybe that's not that sort of game. So for me, this is not the type of team where you can just hang in neutral game script and expect the run game to not gash you. I think it will gash you. What you need to do is you need to take it out of the equation by jumping up early, but you can't jump up early if you start slow. So I think it's more important than ever against this type of team with this type of defense on the Buffalo side to get out to a fast start on offense.
Yeah. The way to neutralize Seattle in a game that doesn't have DK Metcalf is to make sure you neutralize Kenneth Walker, and doing that with a defensive philosophy, as Chill Will points out, as he is a huge fan of our defensive philosophy. That's a horrible philosophy for a team in Western New York with Super Bowl aspirations. And yeah, I agree. I think it's almost like one of the stubborn aspects of Sean McDermott and the defense. But again, I'm not unaware that they do make that choice, but sometimes the matchup just calls for it, man. And like the line of, or the margin of error becomes ever so thin when you talk about the increase in talent in the backfield and who's running the ball. And, you know, Tony Pollard's not a slouch, but Tony Pollard is not Derrick Henry. Tony Pollard is not Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker can beat you at all levels of the field. He can run outside. He can run between the tackles. He can pass catch out of the backfield, which is also terrifying. And Seattle did that against Atlanta and try to make it a part of their offense. And in a game where you don't have DK Metcalf, to me, this feels like a more opportune time, not to break your tendency altogether, because that's not something I would realistically expect them to do, but to make some slighter adjustments. Maybe stack the box a little bit more to try and make him uncomfortable and give Geno Smith, who's handled pressure and has handled his pocket very well, to see something a little bit different, to see a different defensive tendency and to throw them off a smidge, because I really do think that the X factor of this game for the Buffalo Bills, as far as how the offense is going to have to respond to a Seattle defense that, again, can generate pressure, but you can get your yards and your scores on them, is Kenneth Walker. He is that guy that you have to shut down. He is that player that I ultimately believe can individually, even at times, carry a Seahawks offense to glory. But if you are able to neutralize him and you are able to make adjustments where maybe you stack the box a bit more, maybe you bring the extra linebacker out. I don't really know how you stop this man. I think you can at least have success. And maybe stopping is the wrong term, but maybe slowing down is the way I would rather put it. Slow down to Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, I think that what you have to do is your defensive line has to win, because the Seahawks, it's important to note that the Seahawks offensive line is abysmal.
Yeah.
Right. It's abysmal. Walker is terrifying with horrible run blocking, right? Like their tackles are young and talented, and I think improving. Charles, there you go. Charles said it. Their interior offensive line is, I mean, you said meh, Charles. I think you might have a stronger positive opinion on the Seattle interior offensive line than I do. Meh is too strong for me. It is not good. Having Ed Oliver back and healthy is huge. Daquan Jones is huge. I think having Dwan Smoot kick inside, I think is a big deal. I think that this is one of those things where I worry a little bit about Dwayne Carter in this game, because Dwayne Carter is the new Jordan Phillips right now. Splashy plays, right? Followed by incredible bouts of inconsistency that we ignore because he made this splashy play. Now, to be fair, he's a rookie. This is a completely acceptable outcome right now for Dwayne Carter's. I mean, this is way better than bouts of inconsistency and no splashes.
I said it to Anthony in messages. If he's got to be a better Tim Settle this year, or a better, like even a better Jordan Phillips as you compared him to, like that's fine. Like he's a rookie. It's okay if he's got to get his lumps.
I'm completely fine with that. So for me, I'm sitting here like, I don't know if I really feel strongly about, because Dwayne Carter being out of position against, Tony Pollard is a little different, because I like Tony Pollard. I think he's a good running back. He's not Kenneth Walker.
No.
So, being out of position and getting blown up by a double team against Kenneth Walker, and all of a sudden it's a touchdown. So this is one of those where I need Ed Oliver and I need Daquan Jones and I need Dwayne Smoot to really have good games. I'd like to see him reduced down inside. I wish Vaughn was back for this game.
Yeah.
So you could have Dwan Smoot reduced down inside more often. But he's doing all of it with Kenneth Walker is doing it with a not good interior offensive line. with DK Metcalf being out, that's where my brain is at.
And what's frustrating about Seattle with the way they run too is there's no discrepancy in their tendency, whether it's inside or outside runs. They're not Atlanta, who just decided that the interior offensive line could just take a night off and we'll just run to the edges with two extremely talented running backs all the time, or 70% of the time. Seattle's pretty even. I mean, 49.7% when it comes to inside the tackles, 46.4 outside. They just run in the way they want to with Kenneth Walker. And even if their interior O-line hasn't been great, he is great. And he kind of makes up for it, which is something that's difficult to do in the NFL. So that is a valid, concern and a valid point of emphasis that I hope this Bills defense prepares for accordingly. I'm sure they will. The other thing I wanted to point out, Bruce, and I know we'll wrap up in a few minutes, but it's Geno Smith, but mainly Geno Smith in the pocket. And Geno Smith's pocket presence has been stellar. He extends plays so well, even in the midst of pressure. The way he can navigate a pocket, step up it, and use his feet is so impressive. And I have a feeling that this is going to drive Bills fans nuts this Sunday, because a big thing for me with the Buffalo Bills is allowing plays to continue, even though they hit home, because the pressure gets there, but they just can't complete the play. Geno Smith is infuriatingly good at extending those plays in the pocket, and I firmly believe that he's going to do that on Sunday. So really, it's going to take downfield coverage to be on point, which again, no DK Metcalf, that can be a little more possible, for me to feel comfortable with the fact that Geno Smith is throwing this football against this Bills defense this Sunday. He is just really freaking good at keeping that pocket clean for himself. I shouldn't say keep a pocket clean, but extending it. And I feel like that is just going to be the specific thing I'm really watching that isn't Kenneth Walker, to say, if they actually can successfully disrupt Smith in the pocket, finish their plays and bring him down, I think we have a good shot. If they don't, I don't like it. I do not like it. So what do you think about that before we wrap up?
I'm in favor of your direction. My brother had a whiteboard next to his desk one time, and it said, I am enthusiastically in favor of the direction set by management. That's what it said on there. He was being snarky, obviously. So my thought is, I am enthusiastically in favor of the direction set by Joe DeRosa.
Ooh, I want to just clip that part off and just play it back, because that's a very eloquent way of saying that now. I'm just gonna play it, and I'm gonna make it my alarm in the morning. That'll wake me up. That'll make me feel so good about myself. But it's
you're gonna get up, look in the mirror. I am smart enough. I am talented enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. Morning affirmations with Joe DeRosa.
Walking into the mirror, just like start tearing up, like, you got this today, man. Bruce said you do. But yes, I
think
gonna
wear pants today. You're not gonna cry.
I appreciate that sentiment, Bruce. And I just think that is something that this Bills defense needs to neutralize, is Geno's pocket presence, which is very difficult to do. But again, back-end coverage without DK Metcalf might get him to hold that ball for a split second longer. Having guys with long arms as your edge rushers might be the key in disrupting Geno, making him feeling enough discomfort to bring him down and ultimately have success, throw his timing off, throw his rhythm off. Make it so that if he's off, the rest of the offense falls off, even with a Kenneth Walker. And that is my final point on Seattle. Bruce, any final thoughts before we say goodnight this evening?
Yeah. I have some final thoughts. Something that I have been marinating on the last little bit. I have been marinating. Yes, Geno is also good against zone defense. Spin is correct. I have been marinating on the idea that the Bills team that we have now is the Bills team that we hoped for a long time. And they're good, and we've spent so much of our time being mad about it. And we think that, here's what happens. We think that being happy or grateful or things like that is somehow mean being content. And somehow we don't allow ourselves to feel that way, because we think that means we're not striving for more. I hate to break it to you. You're not striving at all. You're not the team. It doesn't matter. There's nothing stopping you from just being happy about it. Like, you think somehow that if you're happy about it, that means that you're like not holding the team's feet to the fire and you're not demanding a championship. No, you're just being miserable, dude. Like, you're not making any impact. It all boils down from just us generally being narcissistic and thinking that we have somehow like impact on this. And we don't have any control over it. So My encouragement, as it usually is, would be to just enjoy the ride. That doesn't mean you can't be critical. That doesn't mean we can't think that things should be better. That doesn't mean we don't have criticisms of it. But like, don't stop yourself from all those things that you said you were going to feel when the team was good. Because people are like super mad. Like the first quarter on my social media was like really bad. I joked around. I said, the best time to mute people is right after the Bills go down in the first quarter. Like that's the best time to mute, because it's when they're at their absolute peak of overreactionary. And you're all like, listen, if you can't handle being down in the first quarter to the Titans, like if I can't handle you at your worst, then I don't even want to see you at your best. And so for me, that's my big takeaway. My big takeaway is that like nothing's going to go bad if you just allow yourself to be happy. Like nothing bad's going to happen. I promise you. Just try it. See how it feels. I'll bet you'll like it, right? Just don't feel guilty and don't feel like somehow that's a bad thing. That if you allow yourself to be happy hey, we have a great quarterback, we have a good team, winning games is fun. Like, I like winning games. This is awesome. Like if you allow yourself to feel that, nothing bad's going to happen, I promise. So that's my big encouragement to the people out there. I've been kind of mulling around over it because as my mute list has grown bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, that's kind of what I've been thinking about.
You have a pineapple big enough to house SpongeBob, as Roy
Oh
says.
my gosh, what a great line. Holy crap, Joe. Can I use that?
Absolutely, go for it. Just
sweet mother of Troy.
I accept royalty checks, 10 cents per quote. As Roy Collins says, Joe's head just grew 2 sizes. Well, it only grew a little bit when Bruce had the quote before, but now that he just said that, yeah, my ego's huge right now, Roy.
Dude, I went to Wendy's the other day and I asked because I wanted to try.
Did you get the Frosty?
Well, I tried the Frosty. I asked about the Krabby Patty meal, and they said, "Oh, we don't have Krabby Patty sauce for the burger." And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll have a chili. And they're like, oh, the chili's not up to temperature. I'm like, well, what am I even doing here? Like, what's the point?
Wendy.
I guess I'll have a spicy chicken sandwich then. Fine.
I gotta, while we're on the topic of fast food, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I went home for a wedding and I met my girlfriend. We go and I'm like, I'm starving. I will literally eat McDonald's. I never have fast food unless it's like a specific day. Like I usually have a treat day during the week. And I got that crispy chicken Big Mac. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. That thing's a 10. That thing was so good. Like fast food 10, Bruce, not a real 10. Like right. I'm not going to compare that to exquisite. No, it's a fast food 10. I have said for so long that the missed opportunity for McDonald's was making a chicken version of the Big Mac. It made way too much sense. Why don't we have a chicken version of the sandwich that stacks 2 patties? No one listened to me. They all call me crazy, Bruce. Look at what they did. Look at what they did. And I like to think in some weird cosmic way, I led that to happen. But my final thoughts on the Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Bills in general, to further your point a little bit, going off what you said, people desire absolutes. It's the human condition. Everyone wants the absolute of something. They want information. They want a clear-cut answer, cut and dry, point blank. And sports Twitter, sports fandom, is a textbook definition of that. And like you said, we have a good football team. We have a team that is 5-2, playing really good ball, having success this year. Will they win the Super Bowl? I don't know. I won't predict it. I will just say I don't know. Could they? Absolutely. But we have gone through so many years of bad football that when we get to this point, it's new territory in a lot of ways for a lot of people, to a point that it almost creates this environment of hostility when the team that you got so used to seeing winning isn't doing as well, or maybe is showing certain lapses, but it also makes you hyper fixate on those things long term, even when they're not issues anymore. And I find that, like you said, we can enjoy this without the idea that just because we enjoy it means we forgive everything. I can enjoy and compliment Sean McDermott and the defensive scheme without saying that Sean McDermott is, or I should say, I could compliment the scheme, compliment the defense, and also think that Sean McDermott is not a perfect coach and has had several mistakes this year that I can point the finger to. It's not cut and dry. It's a gray area. Sports are a gray area because we are talking about the result of many humans competing on a field, making decisions in real time, and no one is perfect. Therefore, the game is not perfect. So I am going to enjoy this. I'm going to hope they win the Super Bowl, but I'm also going to maintain the mentality that if I see you saying nice things about the team, it doesn't mean I think you think the team is the perfect team or that they're the best team in the world. You just might be happy, and that's okay. Bruce, thank you for being here, man. I truly appreciate you. I appreciate your time. My favorite blue ethereal floating orb of light that joins me on the show. Where can the people find you, my friend? What do you got going on in your world?
I have a hot take for you, Joe.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready for my hot take?
I'm so ready. Let's do it.
I think you and I rambling is the best part of the show. No, don't get me wrong. I think we have good content about the Bills and everything. I think you and I just talking about Wendy's and nonsense, right? Like, I think it's the best part of this show. I really do.
I appreciate that. And listen, man, you got me on the rant of the chicken sandwich, but like it needed to happen. And also, I'm sorry you had that Wendy's experience. I hope they have it next time.
I hope so too. If for some reason you listen to the show, you don't know who I am, and you thought to myself, that dude, the rambling dude, I wonder if I could listen to like 30 minutes of just him rambling. Like, that sounds amazing. I want more of this thing that I got a small piece of. Then I think you should probably listen to my show. My show is the Bruce exclusive. It looks like the blue ethereal floating orb. That's the logo right there. I use it that way. And it shows up every Thursday on whatever podcast platform you like. It's not a YouTube show. So if you want to see video, I didn't want it. Okay. So here's the deal. People ask me if I wanted to do YouTube for a long time. And of course, my camera is, always broken. So I never get a chance to do that. I'm actually thinking about hiring like a puppeteer and sending them an audio file and having them do like a little puppet thing to the audio and then just posting that on YouTube. So I'm like the Muppet podcaster. I think there's something to this.
I think you actually have something there. I would 100% watch that. And you can get creative with like the sets. Sorry, go on.
And you can find me on social media at Bruce Exclusive. So that's pretty cool. And become a Cover One insider.
Yes. So I was just about to segue into that. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you. As Spin, who I was waiting for the one comment, Spin has every show that makes me laugh or disrupts me. It's this. Isn't Joe's head already maxed out with hot air? Shouldn't it explode now that it just got bigger? I have infinite capacity for hot air, Spin. Infinite capacity. You're going to have to try harder than that. Anyways, the One Pass. Yes, you should all sign up. The link is in the description below. For $60 a year, you will have access to our premium content, including the Cover One Discord channels, which are a blast, constant discussion, and well worth your time. But signing up for that also makes you eligible for some pretty cool things, like this awesome shirt that I am wearing, customized, created by 26 Shirts, an awesome company that has a great promotion of shirts going on right now. And I think you should check them out and check their site out. We are happy to partner with them. We also have some great giveaways going now. This month's is a Hex Head Art Bills wall sign made of metal. It's an awesome design. It's awesome for your wall. I hope you can win it if you are a member of the One Pass. And also a Teron Johnson 11x14 signed autograph picture. So if you are interested, again, link is in the description below. Thank you all so much for being One Pass members. Bruce, thank you for being here. As always, you are one of my favorite guests. So much fun to talk to always. And I am very excited to find the Puppeteer show eventually on my feed. For me, everybody, I am going to throw up the banner that says Joe Revois. And I'm going to tell you all that you can find me on Twitter/X at @show_DeRosa, where I tweet about the Bills, random things you don't care about, and recently the New York Yankees, who are on a World Series run. That's why my tagline was Juan Jodo. I didn't call that out before. I would die for that man, pay him anything he wants. Everybody here, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you could drop a like, that would be greatly appreciated. If you are listening to us on our audio platforms, 5 stars. Unless you hate me, then 1 star is fine. At least you gave a rating. I appreciate you for your time. We appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here. I'll be back next week with hopefully another good vibe show after hopefully another win against the Seattle Seahawks. A tough matchup as always. But for the rest of the week, everybody, enjoy yourselves. Take care. I hope you enjoy the game on Sunday. For us, we are out. As Spin says, Joe's head is too big. I can't see the like button. I'm going to wrap it there, man. You guys have a great night. I'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.